Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. On Mondays, I talk to guests who are either professionals in the mental health space, advocates of mental health, or somebody who experiences or has lived with a mental health challenge. If this happens to be the first time you are watching this show and you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you click down that subscribe button, or if you're watching this on any of the TV streaming platforms like E360 TV, put us into your favorites, your watch or want to watch list, whatever it's called, so that you don't miss another episode. Because, as I say all the time, if this is your multiple time watching, every single guest that I have really topples over each other, and the information that they're able to provide, especially on Mondays with Mental Health Mondays, is phenomenal. So, without further ado, I am going to bring up my special guest for today, Kari Petruch. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Yay. Okay.
Hi.
Yay. Well, thank you, Kari. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
We'll have a really long, drawn out story, and without taking a lot of time with your podcast about that, I need to just go to. I was my early childhood was with a mother who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, so I had a very, very different early childhood. Um, and then growing up, I had difficulty with what relationships looked like and what reality was. So the reality of my world at home and the reality of my world at school or in church were completely different. And so I was very, very confused about what a good relationship was. And because I didn't understand that, and I had very, very low self-esteem, a low sense of how to be a friend, how to have a friend, or what a relationship was really like. I married someone who was not exactly nice to me. So without going into all the details of that, it was a very difficult and abusive relationship, and still didn't know what a good relationship looked like. And then after that, after 27 years in that relationship, I decided to walk away and to start my life anew, which has been the most wonderful, wonderful experience of my life. At the end of that relationship, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I was severely depressed. I didn't understand how I was going to survive or how I was going to live. It was severe enough to where I had a 0 credit score. So I wasn't allowed to have a checking account or credit cards or anything like that. So I really had to start over as a human being in this society with nothing. And so I decided I went to work, and I decided to build my credit score and all of those things, and build my life. And that included therapy. And I needed that therapy to straighten out all of the really cross-eyed things that had gone on in my life. And I realized that my depression was related to my growing up circumstances and my relationship circumstances. So I embarked on the process to heal through those things. And once I went through all of these wonderful, wonderful experiences, and I thank God for my therapist, not every day, but a lot of days, I found the man of my dreams. And he is my king. I'm his queen. We are very madly in love with each other. I don't want to tell you that there's any such thing as perfection, because he and I grow and learn every day together. But I'm grateful. I'm very grateful that he is in my life, and that I know what a great relationship looks like. And so after that, I started embarking on helping other people to have great relationships. And I went down the path of learning the systems and creating my own systems about how people can overcome all of the trauma and depression and abuse and have great relationships together. So today I help couples to be together because they want to be together. A lot of the couples that I help are empty nesters and who have awakened next in the bed together and decided, who are you and what are you doing in my house? So this is a passion of mine, and I'm driven to do this, and I believe in it.
Wow, that's amazing. And thank you for sharing your story. There's a lot of little pieces that I am curious about, and you wrapped it into this beautiful package of where you were to where you are now. And I am curious. So I'm excited to talk about what you do as a profession, but also I am really curious because this show is about mental health. And you talked a lot about how your reality at home was very different from the reality when you went out and about at school, at church, and all those other places. Um,
Mhm.
I'm wondering, would you be able to just share a little bit more about that experience for anyone who may also have similar experiences in their life?
Well, as a child, my home life was normal for me was being awakened in the middle of the night to kill bugs on the walls that weren't there. It was imaginary people that my mother was talking to that weren't there, and she would get very upset and very abusive if I couldn't tell her what they were saying or how they were saying it, or uh, she had her reality. And for me, when I was in early childhood, I thought there was something really, really wrong with me because I didn't see those things. Um, I thought that I was a sick person, you know, and it wasn't until I really thank God for school. It wasn't until I got to school when I realized that that my life was my home life was not reality. And then I got to school and I had great teachers and students in my life, and I never shared that stuff. I never did. I was terrified to tell people that my mother would wake me up to kill bugs in the middle of the night, or that we had to boil all of our clothing because there were imaginary bugs in all of our clothing. So all of our clothing would be put into pots and we'd be boiling all the clothes. Please excuse me if I laugh, but it was what it was. And it was that. And then I was really fortunate enough to be invited to church. So I had a church life and I had church friends, and that helped me with my reality of what was really going on was not normal at home. And what was going on at school and church was more what regular people go through. So I really had to embark on that, but it still did not. I was very quiet, very withdrawn, very afraid. And so I really didn't get a grip on how to negotiate a romantic relationship or how to notice when people were abusive. I just didn't. I just wanted to help everybody and love everybody, you know?
And were you an only child?
No, I have a brother. He is a couple of years younger than me. And I was really super responsible for taking care of him.
I think it's interesting. I have learned through my degree and heard a lot of people speak about their relationships, but
Mhm.
also family relationships in
Mhm.
relation to having a parent who experiences schizophrenia, and knowing that even like back in the day, we really had no understanding around it. And of course, now there's a little bit more, which is good. But having, going through those times and not having the understanding has, I don't know what the question is that's formulating in my brain, but
Well, I will tell you that one of my major malfunctions was that I suffered from unworthiness.
mm,
I had lectures of words told to me that I did not understand, and I'm not going to repeat them on the broadcast, but there were things that were said to me that I didn't understand, and I spent hours of being yelled at, screamed at, called names, and so by the time I got to high school, I really didn't feel worthy of someone who was when the man that I married asked me out, I thought he was crazy. I had hair down to my shins that was back in a braid, and I wore glasses, and I thought, why would you ask me? Because I had the picture of myself that I was ugly and that I wasn't worthy of someone like him. So that's where my self-esteem was at the age of 16.
and that translated, you said, into a very abusive relationship.
No, yes, very controlling relationship, very, very controlling. And I allowed it because I thought, well, you know, who am I? I put him as above me and worth more than me, and that I was just an appendage. And that's what I basically became and allowed, because I really didn't understand or know differently until much later. And you were talking about, early on, that we didn't know a lot about mental illness and how it affects children or teenagers or young adults. And by the time I got to where I walked away, I had a fuller understanding. Thank God for the internet and and looking things up and going, wait a minute, I don't have to do this. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very, I am fascinated by the brain and maturation periods. And so that's why what sparks my curiosity is I know like 0 to 7 years old is really that imprint stage, and then the modeling stage. And when you have a parent who has a mental illness, there is a lot that you're, like you said, the reality is so different.
Mm,
And then as you move forward in life, getting into school and being able to go to church and understanding that you're not crazy, it really truly is just the household situation that you lived in. And then
mm,
being able, even as you got older, to understand more that it was that worthiness, that you didn't feel worthy, and then really got into controlling an abusive relationship. But being able to get out of that and
mm,
going to therapy and then translating that into what you do today, I just think is
mm.
really incredible.
It is. I remember when I went to a psychologist right after I left my first husband. And he explained to me that usually children who've gone through what I've gone through, and like I said, it's a really big story. I went through a lot more than I just told you, but um, he said that usually girls who have gone through that end up suicidal or end up in prostitution, or both end up dead. He said, I can't believe you're sitting in front of me. And he asked me how I got there. And I said, well, no matter what happened, I have an unshakable faith. And I truly believe that there was something bigger than me, and I'm not it. And always have, without getting into religion or anything like that. I just know that there's something bigger than me, and that unending faith in something bigger than me has carried me through and given me courage to do everything that I've done.
That's amazing. Yeah, being able, I mean, to have a safe space, right?
Mhm.
Like that's probably what it came down to also, is having that safety, that security of knowing that you have this faith and this community that is able to support you. And yeah, that I think that makes all the difference in somebody's life too.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I had teachers who encouraged me. I love to learn, and I had teachers who encouraged me. And in at my in my church life, I had people in church who encouraged me to learn and encouraged me to share what I learned. I and and I also had my grandmother, and my grandmother was my model of a mother and loving peace. And because of her, I also understood that I could be loved by someone else.
Wow, that's powerful. That's amazing to even have that support too.
Hmm.
So, as you went along this journey of really understanding and leaving your first husband and getting into the space where you were going to therapy and able to learn how to have a healthy relationship, what was the biggest things, I guess, that came out of that for you?
And the first really big thing I learned was to have a friend and be a friend. If you can imagine, I spent my whole life so afraid of everyone that I didn't know how to have a friend. And I didn't, for me, what I thought was being a friend was giving everything. My grandmother used to say to me, Kari, if somebody asks you for your right arm, you give it to them and go, oh, well, I have another one, that desperation of wanting someone around me, that desperation of wanting to have a friend. And I really didn't understand until I got to therapy. That first big aha moment was being a friend and having a friend. And that friendship doesn't mean that I sacrifice myself, and that is what I'd done in my life, which is sacrifice me and didn't have any boundaries at all. So that was the big aha, the first big aha.
That's, I mean, just the knowing of, because you talked about relationships, you didn't have a good model of what a relationship looked like, and then
Mhm.
learning friendship just in general should be double-sided versus just one-sided, and no giving away arms. You do have another one, but they don't grow back, so
Yeah, and it's totally related to worthiness.
yeah.
I am unworthy and you are more worthy than me. So I should sacrifice everything that I have so that you'll spend time with me and you'll be my friend. This is the conclusion that I drew through my life until I went to therapy. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I volunteered all the time. I overdid. I overachieved. I gave everything that I had to my children, my family, to charitable organizations. I worked myself into the ground, just people pleasing and just trying to have people in my life that to give to, and what's funny is I didn't even need to hear a thank you or get a certificate or anything like that. It was just like me, and that's how I was. It was like, can you just like me? And I learned better once I went to therapy. I learned that I gotta like me first, you know, and making what's really funny is like, oh, I can remember that first list. The list of what do you like about you and what do you not like about you. And I remember just writing the list. And I can only come up with 5 things that I liked about me. I had a list of 35 things that I didn't like about me. And I didn't understand that there was something wrong with that. And I brought it to my therapist, and she was like, wait a minute, and that's how we first made the first steps into self-discovery. What I didn't like about me was what everybody else had told me all my life. It wasn't about what I knew about me. It was about what people said about me. And I had adopted that because I didn't have the other side, the positive side, the true blessings, and what a gift that I am in my life to the people who love and care about me. I couldn't even imagine thinking that way. I thought, well, that's just, that goes to the bad side. That's arrogant. That's, it was a trip to walk down that road.
Yeah, that's definitely what I love that you said about that is first you had to make this list that I'm really identifying the differences of what I like about myself, what I don't like about myself, and then being able to just acknowledge that that isn't right. You need to have more positives than the negatives. And I mean, we have both, of course, but we still have to have that balance, and it gives you that understanding around how you can start to change and shift and love yourself first and foremost, which is huge.
Yeah, I had to, it was important that I changed the language, all of the language that was told to me. It was important that I changed the language that I talked to myself with. Very deprecating, very, what I imagined was humbleness was extreme self-hatred. And there's a difference, and I didn't know there was a difference, and I had to learn that. I had to learn that there's a difference between having humility and having no self-worth at all. It was a pretty hard road to walk.
I can imagine. What I would love to do, we're going to go to a quick sponsored break, and then when we come back, shift a little bit into what you do now, giving some extra tools to the audience, but we'll go to sponsor break and we'll be right back.
Are you crypto curious? Maybe it's a little too scary for you to get involved in all this crazy Bitcoin cryptocurrency stuff. Join me, your host, Charlie Stivers of Goose Live. Find us on Achieve TV Thursdays, noon Mountain Time, where we talk all things crypto.
And like that, we're back. Well, if you happen to be just joining us, I am chatting with Kari, and she is sharing her experience throughout life when she was younger. Her mother, who experienced schizophrenia, and having this reality of life at home versus this reality of in church and school and in life, and how that really shaped her relationships throughout time and the understanding of what it meant to really have a relationship. Also, that worthiness, the worthiness of self and not having worthiness up until you left your ex-husband, which happened to be controlling an abusive relationship, and going to therapy and ultimately finding that self-worth which then moved you into the space of helping other people, finding a wonderful now marriage, and also being able to share that experience with everyone else. I know, brief synopsis, but
Pretty good.
What I would love, so now we're kind of at this point that we're going to therapy, we're really understanding self-worth, self-love, and moving forward in life and knowing that it's not you, it happened in the situation that you grew up in. So tell me a little bit more how this shifted into what you do now.
Well, what happened is that I decided that I wanted to learn more, do more, learn more, do more. I've always had a compassion and a compelling desire to help people. That's been in me since I was very young. And so I decided that since I wanted to help other people with their relationships, I needed to go and get certified to be helping people with their relationships. So I went to school and I got the certification, and I went on further and did the master certification. And I have a mission, passion, and drive to help couples. I really do. Because the couples that I've helped have had tremendous changes in their relationship. Now, I do not help people who are in an abusive situation. I refer them to therapists, and I absolutely believe in therapy. But those couples who've gotten into a place where most common thing I hear is, I'm bored. And I help to reignite that love that brought them together in the first place. And I have, it rocks my boat. It really does, to see them change, to see them rejuvenate and reignite and fall back in love with each other again. And it is my passion.
That's amazing. And so going through getting your certification to be able to help people, and I am curious, as you followed along this journey, were there certain, I know you did say earlier, those people that are now empty nesters and they wake up and they're like, who are you? Why are you next to me? Because you kind of, when you have kids, and I know this, when you have kids, that becomes your identity. Like I am my son's mom. I'm not even Kelli, right? And even with the group of friends that we have, we refer to each other as so-and-so's mom or so-and-so's dad. And you kind of take on these identity of your kids. And most of the time, not most of the time, sometimes your relationship is the last thing that you work on. And then once everybody grows up and leaves the house, then you're like, who have I been living with for so many years? Who am I even?
Absolutely. It happens. I try to get younger couples to wake up and realize when those kids are grown and gone, there's still the two of you. And one of the first steps in keeping the closeness, you were so close before those kids were born, very intimate, very close, and then poof, the conversations become reports. And one of the first steps in younger couples, this doesn't happen so much with empty nesters because the report time is over and they don't know what to do with their time. But for younger couples who have younger children in the relationship, it's important that you understand the difference between conversation and report. Report is when you say your son, daughter, children did this XYZ today, and you did XYZ today. And your other half comes to you and says, I did XYZ today. And the children have, A, B, and C to do the rest of the week, and on Monday and Tuesday and you spend a whole hour talking about that, or this needs to be done in the house, or that needs to be done with the car, or it's called report. And when a couple gets into report mode and all you talk about is what is going on in the routine of life, then you lose connection and intimacy with each other. And what I get young couples to do is to begin to have conversations. Remember when you were dating and you talked about world issues? Remember when you were dating and you were feeling out each other's spiritual beliefs or each other's views on the economy or whatever the subject was? You were really trying to get to know each other and wooing each other and being romantic. That shouldn't stop. That needs to continue. And couples need to dedicate time where there is no report and there is conversation. Some people use date night to do that, and that's okay. But I encourage couples not to go and have movie and a dinner be date night. Get a little fun and get a little creative. There is no communication going on. Maybe you're holding hands, but there's really no communication going on when you're holding a movie. Take a chance. Go do something fun. If money's an issue, and you don't want to get the babysitter and do all of these things, go out to your friendly little store, and I won't name the name of it because but spend $1 on squirt guns for the two of you. It's summer. Go outside. The kids are asleep, even in the dark, and go and chase each other around with squirt guns. Be a kid. Spend time together, get fun, get creative, just keep that juice flowing. That's the first thing that I talk to couples about.
I love that. And bringing in some of the play, because I know that my husband and I are guilty of this also, is the report. That I was like, aha, light bulb moment of when he comes home, hey, how was your day? And then it's like listing off all the things, and there's there's conversation, but yeah, it's generally around like, what did you do today? What did the whole list of things. And so that's a great reminder of not having the reports, having that conversation. And the thing that kind of popped into my head is when you have these blended families that come together, when you already have kids, which was our situation, and then you come together and you don't know life without children. What would you say in those type of families to really get more than just that surface level, like get a little bit deeper of understanding of each other?
Well, there are a lot of blended families out there. There are people who get married and get pregnant on their honeymoon. So they don't have a whole lot of time between getting married and baby showing up, or maybe the baby came and then the marriage came right after that. There's so many different kinds of families, and it's so difficult. My youngest son is a blended family. He married a wife who had 3 children, and they've got 2 children together, and they have another child that they have custody of. There are 6 children in his home. So when I say to my son, oh, make sure you have time for each other, he's like, Mom, but I'm right. And what they do is they make an effort to take vacations together, even if it's an overnight somewhere, even if it's a couple of days together, and they find a way to spend just that absolute intimate one-on-one time with each other, away from everything that's going on. They both work full time. They have all of these children in their house. They range from the age of 17 down to 2 2-year-olds. So they have a lot of children, and they have a lot of busy things and a lot of different moving pieces, but they do have a rule together. And once the children are in bed, The younger children are in bed. The older children are instructed to be away from mom and dad. And they have 1 hour every night where they just cuddle. They might watch a movie. They might, sit there and other things might go on too. But they make sure that every night they have an hour of intimate time together. They super take care of each other. And unless there's a major issue, like you got a kid that's got 104 fever, well, things like that happen. But if everything is going okay, take the time. And it's funny because they play this little Google game. They'll have a curious question, and then one will look up something else, another will look up something else, another will look up something else, and it sparks the conversation. And then they lay the phones down and they start having a conversation together about the things they discovered. It's so important that you do that. So I absolutely do understand blended families, and sometimes it just feels so overwhelming. To do everything all the time and spend time with your partner and get the kids stuff together. And, I get it. My son calls me and tells me, okay, mom,
I love that idea of just the 1 hour of time together, and the Google, we do like a turn off the TV, put the phones away, and ask questions, just like random questions. And we'll do it with the whole family. So it does get kind of funny with the younger and the older. We have an 8-year-old and then a 19-year-old. And so there's a gap, but it's kind of fun to have those moments. But I didn't think like that intimate time with your partner or your spouse versus the kids always around. So I love that idea too, and being able to just explore.
You have to remember that your spouse is your spouse, or your serious partner, whatever kind of relationship you have. That person comes before everything. Like I said, the kids will grow up, the kids will go away, and then there will be the two of you. The other question I ask couples is, when is the last time you held hands? And so many couples can't tell me when the last time they held hands was. Do you hold hands when you're walking from the parking lot into a store together? Do you hold hands when you decide to get up in the morning? Holding hands is the first loss in intimacy for couples. The very first thing that happens is you stop holding hands. I'm busy doing this and I'm busy doing that. But that physical connection is the first line of intimacy. When you were dating, you held hands. Keep doing that.
Wow, I didn't realize. That was. I feel like I always hold up I'm like, I can hold no. My son actually, like, we always hold hands, and so I'll hold hands with my husband and my son, and it's so intimate. That is, and it's simple, but it's so intimate. I didn't think that would be the first thing.
Need that. Your children do need that as well. But sometimes we as couples forget that our partner needs that. They need the physical contact. You get so busy sometimes as a couple with your life that you forget that your partner needs physical contact. They need a hug for no reason. They need a kiss on the cheek for no reason. They need a hand held for no reason other than because you love them and you want to touch them. Keep touching each other. It's not you over there and me over here. It's us together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, is just being able to be together. And I think I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard a study, a hug and holding a hug for, I feel like they said 8 minutes. It sounds really long, but it helps like reconnect when you hug somebody for an extended period of time. Maybe it wasn't that long, but I know hugs are can and they can be really powerful and reconnect people too.
Right. Also laughter.
Mm.
Many times couples let go of their laughter. And to have laughter, you got to play. And it's important that you play. There was a couple that were in my office, and this woman says, my husband's no longer sexually interested in me. And I looked at her and I smiled and turned my head and said, really? She says, yeah. And I said, oh, well, I promise you, if you put nothing on but an apron and you cook dinner, he'll be interested. And she burst into laughter, and so did he. It's you gotta let go and laugh and make sure the kids are in bed if you're going to do something like that. But play with each other, don't be offended when your husband smacks you on the butt. Don't. That he's showing you his way of physical attention, enjoy. Be glad. He still wants to smack you on the butt. I mean, come on, yes, and you do the same. Go over there and smack him on the butt, or hug him for no reason. I one of the things that my husband and I do, we work from home, both of us. So I travel a lot, but when I'm home, I'm doing podcasts or I'm working from home, and I know he's in the other room. And if he's not on a call and I'm not on a call, I just appear in there and give him a hug or give him a kiss on the cheek or, let him know, or just smile at him or stick my tongue out at him and go, he's sitting there. But all of those little contacts, every time you have an opportunity, are key and essential to keeping your love alive.
I love that. The thing that is popping up into my head and something that I had to explore for myself was, like you were talking about, that worthiness or feeling of unworthy, but also giving. And you are very much in that cycle of constantly giving and never receiving. And that was something that I had to really work and continue to work on, is the receiving aspect. Because as you were talking, even like smacking somebody on the butt, or like when you don't receive the smile, or you don't receive the compliment, or receive that as being playful, and you maybe receive it as being mean or something of that nature, I think that also goes into a lot of relationships, is finding the balance between giving and receiving too.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I did need to learn how to receive. And many of the couples that I talk to, there is an issue with giving and receiving. It really is. Permission to receive seems to be, and I'm not saying that it's only this way, but it seems to be more of a female issue. Seems with my clientele. I'm not saying that it's always that way, but I have a lot of experience with us as women being taught to give, and to find our value in giving. And I'm not blaming any organization or the way, but it is something that many of us women are raised with doing. So I really did have to learn to receive. And that was part of the being a friend and having a friend, was learning to receive from a friend. Now, I have 4 very close friends. I've got one best friend, which I never had in my life until 10 years ago. And I have four very close friends who are so important to me, but I have to receive from them. I've learned that I can't give fully of me unless I receive back from them. And it's not like they owe me or anything like that. It's just like, they want to say something nice to me. The words to someone who is complimenting you are thank you. And that's it. And I had to learn to say thank you, not to discount what I was wearing, not to discount what my hair looked like, not to discount, the food that I made, not to discount, how much something cost, or we seem to be taught as women to do that. And it isn't necessary. I can say thank you, and I don't have to say, oh, I only paid $5 for this. Mm-hmm. That is lowering my self-worth. Thank you is enough. And I learned that. And I try to teach other women that along the way. Is thank you is enough. So
yeah, that's such a true statement too. And I actually learned that from a friend in the past, that compliments of saying thank you, and then even giving yourself a compliment, even though it feels super awkward. You're like, thank you. And I'm really good at singing, or whatever it is. And I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of shift your brain to receive, and then also receive even more from yourself. And it feels really awkward to say thank you and then give yourself a compliment, but it helps kind of retrain your brain. And I love how you said thank you. It can just be a simple thank you. You don't have to give another compliment because somebody gave you a compliment. That's what I do. That's my thing. I'm like, thank you. But yes,
we're trained, but many of us have been trained that way. That we owe something back, or that we've got, we don't have to do that, and the only way to change that is to teach ourselves to behave differently, and then teach our daughters to behave differently. We pass that on to other women, or our female children, or, just the only way it's going to change is if we begin to talk about it and we stop doing it. So
yeah, definitely. And it can feel awkward at first, but at least trying to just say thank you and not having to give back a compliment, or like you said, devaluing what that compliment, because it ultimately, at least what I found, is that people do want to give. Like, I am a giver. You are a giver. I want to be able to give, but I also have to allow other people to give to me, which means that I have to receive. And that was probably one of my biggest life lessons. And I know that has translated into relationships also. And so, yeah, it can be a skill for sure.
Well, how it was put to me is pretty harsh, but it hit home with me. And that was, when I refuse to receive, I'm robbing somebody else of their joy. And I was like, what? Oh, I was like, geez Louise, is it really that? And yeah, it really is. It is. When I refuse to receive, I'm robbing someone else of giving to me and finding joy in the giving.
Yeah. So true. Yes. So I would love, is there any more like tools? That was, amazing. All the things that you said as far as relationships, and really you have to, your spouse, your partner, whomever you are with, you really have to build that relationship, because that is the foundation of your family. And kids, they'll grow up, they'll have their own relationships, their own families, and end up being in this space with this person that you may or may not know at that point. But hopefully, like you said, you can catch them when they're younger relationships and really start to build the strength and the bond without having these reports on a daily basis, and really having that full conversation. So I love all of those tools that you gave. Anything else that you want to share that we haven't talked about?
I definitely do. There is one thing that I try to share very, very often. It's very quick. And that is that the foundation of every conflict in a relationship is the need to be right. And the most wonderful tool that I can share with anybody out there who's listening right now is that think these 3 sentences before you speak, if you can at all. And I know emotions sometimes keep you from doing it, but think, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said by me right now? Those are 3 sentences that can stop me or anybody else in their tracks from saying hurtful things and doing more damage. And words cause harm. They really do. Just those 3 sentences can stop you, make you think about what you're trying to say, and make sure that it really does need to be said. And if it doesn't, don't.
Mm-hmm. So does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said by me right now?
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, a lot of people do. It's not an original. It's not my original. I heard it a long time ago, years and years and years ago, from a good friend of mine, and it's just been passed down. So, like, it's not my original thing, but I live by it.
Yeah, I like that. And we had a comment that came up. I want to learn how to find a good man. If somebody comes to you and they're not in a relationship, or I don't know if you work with individuals, but what would you say to somebody that would say, I want to find a good spouse or partner, man, woman?
Oh gosh, it's not easy to find the right person for you. It takes time and dating and all those things. And I don't want to discount all of that, but I will tell you that making a list of what your values are, not does he have a car, does he have a job, all those things are things. But making a list of values about yourself, what you respect about you. Do you have integrity? Do you have loyalty? Are these valuable to you? If they're valuable to you about you, then looking for that person who has the same values that you're looking for, they don't have to be just like you. What a boring life it would be to find a partner who's just like you. So, but having the same values, having integrity, having loyalty, having faithfulness, whatever those important values are to you, and don't ever settle for anything less. I didn't. And I got the guy I need for me.
I love that. So it goes back to kind of what you said earlier too, is that value of yourself. Like, are there more positives or negatives, and how can we start to really shift from having only 5 things on the positive and 1 million on the negative, but then also translating that into relationship wise? Like, what are those things that you value the most that you can get a partner that values those too?
Right. And if you're in a relationship, if you're in a relationship for a couple weeks or whatever, and you look at it and you say, oh, but I really like him, and you start scratching off those things from your lists, then believe me, those things that you scratched off from your list are going to reappear in that relationship over and over and over and over again. They're not going to go away. You're like, oh, well, you're not going to change him. He's not going to change. Don't scratch things off. If they don't meet your requirements, they're not for you. And that's okay, because you're worth the very best person for you.
Love that. And if you are in a relationship that you want to reignite your love and somebody wants to work with you, how can they find you?
Oh, it's so easy at www.highestintentcoach.com. It's so easy. And, my website, you can go in there and read my blogs without giving your email up or your phone number up. But if you want to give me your email, I have a great gift for couples. And it's 50 things couples can do for fun. It's free, it's fun, it's pretty cool. You can go on my website and you can pick that PDF up right away and just have a really good time.
Amazing. I actually went to your website before you came on and I went and got that because I thought it'd be pretty fun. So
it's a lot of goofy things in there, but hey, memories, create memories.
Absolutely. Well, Kari, this was such an amazing conversation. I am so thankful that you came on today, and thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Kelly.
Of course. All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. Again, on Mondays, I talk to guests who are either professionals or advocates of mental health or those with lived experience. And if you've been watching this for quite some time, you've probably noticed that most of my guests have a story or a background as to why they got into what they do today. But ultimately, they're able to give these amazing tools and information and resources that you can utilize now. And that is the best part. So if this was helpful for you, make sure you share it. Also, make sure you subscribe, add us into your list, watch list. I don't know. Whatever that happens to be, add us in there so that you don't miss another episode, because I go live every single Monday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. So whatever you do, join back. I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye, y'all.